Greetings and welcome to CIF 45 Streams Filmmaker Conversations. My name is Daniel Gray Kantar, founder and executive artistic director of 12 Literary Arts. On behalf of the Cleveland International Film Festival, we want to give special thanks to PNC for sponsoring our Filmmaker Conversations content throughout the entire festival. On today's special Q&A session, we'll be joined by guests from CIF 45 Stream's centerpiece film, Summertime. So I'd like to introduce the director and producer, Carlos Lopez Estrada, and two of the poets and actors featured in the film, Mila Kuda and Tyrus Winter. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to each and every one of you. I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to interface with you all. And to start, I have like a super important question for you. So, is it really that difficult finding a cheeseburger in Los Angeles these days?
I'm gonna let Tyrus answer that.
It is so difficult finding a vegan cheeseburger. It's so funny because I think like back to that film, and I think back to when I was like looking for that, and I'm just like, this made me vegetarian. And I'm like, the search for this burger made me just give up on meat. So,
is that a real thing?
Yeah, I'm vegetarian because of you.
I love it. We respect that.
I'm like, they can't make me do it anymore.
It's awesome. Like watching you go through that journey was really something. But you know, I asked that question in jest, but it really does unpack some really important issues that are reflected in the film. Issues about Los Angeles and issues that we're facing in this country. And there are a number of these issues and themes that hopefully we'll unpack throughout this conversation. Really sort of talking about the ideas and concepts that you all unpack through your poetry. But I want to start truly. I am really wondering why use poetry and spoken word to drive the dialogue of the story. You could have gone anyway, but you chose for poetry, and specifically performance poetry from youth poets and writers. So I'm really interested in why that choice in order to create this really wonderful film.
I think I'll just say that it wasn't as much of a choice as it was a series of events that coincided. I had just finished my first movie, and I met this wonderful group of poets from this organization called Get Lit, which is a nonprofit that works with youth poets trying to bring spoken word into English curriculums around LA and beyond. And I was just so profoundly moved by the experience of seeing all these people so beautifully express their relationship to themselves, to their communities, and to their city. And this idea came of what would happen if we tried to capture this same feeling that I just had, the same experience, onto film, so that more people could get to feel the way I did while I was in the middle of that showcase. So it wasn't so much like anyone sat down and said, hey, let's tell a story about Los Angeles, and you know what, like spoken word is the right tool to do this. Let's find a group of artists. It was kind of the other way around. It was like, here's this group of artists that are already doing really meaningful work that had a profound impact on me, and can I use my skills and my platform as a filmmaker to try to just bring this experience to other people who maybe wouldn't normally get to interact with them. So that's a little bit sort of like how this whole puzzle came to be. There's a lot of stuff that happened after that in order to get the movie made, but that was sort of like the seed that started the journey.
Yeah, sure. I I really can't imagine. There are so many performers that are involved in this film. It must have felt like a really big family making this film. But I'm also wondering how how did you get all these people together? I mean, I can't imagine how you actually pulled all of these different artists together, knowing their schedules and school and all of the things. How did you orchestrate this?
I mean, I'll give you a very short answer, and then I'll pass it on to Mila because I think she can also give a very unique perspective on the process.
Sure.
There's no real simple way to answer that question, just because there's 27 young poets. Each of them is doing their thing. You know, some of them, not gonna lie, are not like really great at getting back quickly. So Tyrus is great. Mila is fantastic, but you know, a few others who shall not be named do take like a week or two to get back, which is not ideal when you're trying to make a movie over the summer. But we knew that this was a group of poets that would be together for a very specific time, just because all of them we were in the beginning of the summer when we had the idea of making the movie, and many of them were finishing high school. Many of them were going to be going across the country come August. Many of them were starting sort of like big if we wanted to do this film, it needed to happen fast. And that meant that we gave ourselves the summer to workshop and shoot the movie. And that meant that we started prepping it without having a script, and that we somehow were lucky enough to get financing before having a script, and that we were going to allow us for this process to become a part of the filmmaking experience. Just the fact that there were so many unknowns that we were writing and rewriting and shooting and reshooting up until the very last minute. So it was quite a journey. And I brought up Mila because she came on early as a poetry supervisor, which means that she was one. I mean, it really was a community effort, but she was one of the people who had to deal with the poetry exchanges and talking to each and every single one of the poets and editing all of their work and trying to, you know, help us piece this mosaic. So I don't know, Mila, if there's anything specific you want to add there.
I mean, you pretty much explained the process as it was already. And I think as far as how we got all these artists together, so many of us had already been working together for a really long time within the organization Get Lit. A lot of us had been like teachers or students within that organization who had been there for so long. So the community sort of already existed. And it was really just a matter of finding a way to tell everybody's stories, which is like a really big, you know, ambition to be like, what do you want to say? If you had one scene in this movie, what could you make it be? And I think that my role as poetry supervisor was to get people to respond to emails, but was also to see how to workshop all their pieces into a coherent narrative as best as we can. And I think what most people ended up doing is just finding a way to funnel their stories into a particular place, because so much of the narrative is over the course of one day in the summer. So if you want to tell your story about like where you grew up in Los Angeles, which is such a sprawling city, it's easier, I think, to put us in a place in that city at a time of day, in a moment, and then weave the narrative sort of throughout that. But it was really special, and I would do it all over again, even if it meant once again emailing people in the middle of the night to please confirm that they're going to show up the next day. Yeah, it was strange and wild and chaotic and amazing.
So this is phenomenal, and truly a testament to the capacity of our youth. Because what I'm hearing you say, which I didn't know, is that you were the poetry editor. You are also, to my understanding, the youth poet laureate for the West Coast.
Yeah, I was. I don't know how you knew that. That's wild.
And Tears, my understanding is that you are a poetry slam champion as well in Los Angeles. Yeah. And so I'm really interested in knowing, what was your journey to poetry and performance, and what does poetry and performance Why is it so meaningful to you, and why should it be so meaningful to others that are watching this film?
Wow.
3 questions. 3. See what I did?
It's funny because we've done these Q&As before, and I don't think I've ever had such a specific question like this about like coming to poetry and what happened there. And I really wish I had an answer, but I think more than anything, I was just writing since I was a child. And then in high school, my freshman year, I had a teacher who really hated poetry and just basically was like, we will not be doing this. And so I transferred schools, as one does. And I ended up having a really incredible creative writing teacher, Kelly Grace Thomas. And she was the first person to sign my name on an open mic list. And I think everything just changed from there. And it just sort of like propelled very quickly, and it became my whole life. It became my weekends, my weekdays, my everything. I was writing all the time. And so many of my friends in high school were poets. Like we all just became like a poetry collective, whether we intended it or not. And I think that there's something cathartic about it that me as an angsty teen like really needed an outlet. And I think it was also just fun. It was fun to have a thing that brought me joy. When so much of high school is like figuring out who you are, trying to fit in, trying to, get into college. There's so much stress that it's nice, I think, to be able to just enjoy poetry. And I also want to say that Tyrus too is a classic slam poetry champion in Los Angeles. And I don't know, Tyrus, if you want to say anything about what poetry is like for you or why you came to it, because I know it's probably different for everybody.
Oh my God. I would say similar to Mila, like I came to poetry as just like in the moment. However, I had been doing so many different art forms like prior. Like I was just trying to find an outlet that I could spend time trying to express like myself and what I wanted to say and like who I wanted to be really in high school, like trying to find who I was. And so when poetry kind of like approached me, I was like kind of in denial. I was like, this is not poetry, this is storytelling, this is my writing, stop. And then so when I ended up joining like poetry class and like the poetry team, I started to just take ownership of my work and start to take ownership of my voice really. And I'm just so grateful to the art form that is poetry that allowed me to be able to do that. And so yeah.
And Daniel, just a little piece of insight is Tyrus was one of the last people to join our summertime collective of poets, and it's because he was like slightly younger than the rest of the crew, and I think had just started, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyrus, but had started to get lit relatively like not very long ago. And the director of the organization, Get Lit, invited me to be a judge in a classic poetry slam that happened on 2019. And Tyrus was performing there. He and his team ended up winning that slam. And I remember just being so entranced by seeing Tyrus perform that we reached out to him after. We were like, hey, Tyrus, we're doing this thing. No idea if you're interested in it or not, but can we just talk to see if you find your place in this movie? And little did we know, he found a really important place in the movie.
Yes, we are so enriched by that stroke of luck, because Tyrus, you have some of the most memorable moments in film, in my estimation. There's some very memorable moments throughout, but I'm struck by some of the moments in which you appear, and we'll certainly talk about some of those just a little bit later, I think. But I guess I'm wondering, there's two. I think there's more than two, but there's two elements of filmmaking that strike me as really interesting. Obviously, there's the shooting of the film, and then there's watching the film after all of the editing has taken place. So I'm wondering for each of you, what were the moments that were most memorable for you during the shooting, or maybe your favorite moments during the shooting? And then what's your favorite moment watching it now that you have an opportunity to watch it? If those are two different favorite moments. Does this question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do any of you want to start?
I'll take it right now. And I think as far as shooting, my scene really took place on a bus in the middle of summer, and I think that was something that was really special for me for so many reasons. One, I had never done anything like this. It was really exciting and new and fresh, and I was like, wow, this is just wild to be on a set and like really someone listening to my poetry and creating such an amazing like vision out of it was really beautiful. But I think also my experience with Summertime, like as the editor, I was taking the bus every single day from the South Bay to Koreatown, which is, let me just say, a really long bus journey. And I'm a young woman, and I was doing this by myself. And I think so often I'd find myself in these moments where I would feel very, very silenced or very afraid because there'd be random people approaching me. It's Los Angeles. It's a big, sprawling city, as I said. And I think that, as a woman, you're sort of socialized to look out for yourself. And I think as a queer woman, I'm also really aware of the way that I exist in the world. And so I think that scene in particular, being on a bus and being able to like share my story and speak up, was really moving for me in a way that I hadn't expected, because in my head it hadn't clicked yet. I was just doing a bus because I was always on the bus. That was just a place that felt like home to me. But then when I was able to actually like tell my story in that particular setting, in that particular way, it really like blew me away, because I was like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if I could live in a world where I was like comfortable enough to speak up when people are saying things to me on the bus or whatever it is. And so that was special. And I didn't really feel it until after shooting. And then I think as far as like seeing the film, I did not see the film until it premiered at Sundance and like on opening night. And that was incredible because the audience was mainly all of us poets and everybody else in the room, but all the poets were there. And I had held this script like so many times. I had workshopped all of these scenes, but I had never seen them come to life. So to see them come to life in such a big, special way, such a huge screen with an audience of my friends and seeing my friends up there, and I just, I will never be able to articulate what that feeling was, because there was such a sense of pride and joy and just awe. So yeah.
Thank you.
Tyrus, you want to go?
Yeah, I would say my favorite moment filming was mostly the sense of community that I had on set. But favorite scene that I love is when I go into the Korean restaurant. And I love that scene because at that point in like the movie, I was like not caring about like my acting or whatever, because in the beginning I was like really nervous. I was scared. I'm like, oh my God, this is my first time. And you can see how like free I looked and felt in that moment. And also I had like gotten the script like an hour before I arrived. And I was like, I have this completely unmemorized, so I am going to just make up the whole thing. So I like went in there and I was like, I'm gonna paraphrase. And I just had such a good time, and it was just such a joy just working with everyone on set who was like super tired but still trying to like give life to everything. And I was just so in awe and just so like I just felt so free in that moment. And I would say favorite scene watching it back besides that one is probably the burger scene where I catch the burger. Another scene where I improvised, and I was like, and I'm like, over. It was so fun to like watch that back, because I remember being in the moment and not like seeing everybody's reaction, but I'm like, what did I do? I was just like, and so when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's what I did. I was like, okay. So yeah.
I'll go quickly. I think my favorite thing to shoot was the limo scene at the end of the film. And I think it's mostly because it landed, by coincidence, it landed really close to the end of the shoot. It was the last week, one of the last few days. And, so many of the poets were there. Mila came to shoot some other. It was just like, it really felt like we had accomplished something. And it really felt like this group of people came really close together to do this thing that we all believed in. And it was just beautiful. And then I think that same poem just kills me every time. It's beautiful, and there were so many moments of poetry, not literal poetry, but so many moments of poetry in this production. Like Raul, who performed that Clouds poem at the end of the movie, he had just come from his grandma's funeral, who had passed earlier that day, and he got to perform this poem up, looking up at her and like what that meant to him. And then the fact that it was sort of like putting a very fine period to this project and these experiences, and that it kind of, that poem, I feel like, represents all of what summertime is. It's I've seen the movie so many times. I think that I'm numb to it, but then that moment comes up and it destroys me every single time. Yeah.
What a stirring moment. What a stirring ending, and a beautiful poem. And hearing the story behind that story, I thank you for sharing that. Wow.
But like that, one day we should do a commentary, like a DVD commentary or something, even if DVDs are not a thing. But like that moment, I would like to say that was like the one moment of poetry during summertime. But like that poem, I feel like every single scene, every single participation, there's just so many layers to it. People's families that are in the movie, like real locations that we shot, inspiring people's stories. It was just such a beautiful experience.
Let's go there for a moment. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those opportunities for folks to really connect with LA, to connect with their families, to connect with people and places in the city that are very important to them? Can you all remember any of those moments in particular?
I can list.
You brought it up.
Yeah, no. I can list a few, and then Tyrus and Mila, if you, I'm sure you have also your own. Okay, I'll that Raul moment I thought was beautiful. There's a poem called Home that there's two poets, Lee and Benet, that perform it, which is another one that kills me every time. That one was shot entirely in their houses, no production design, no anything. We just sent our little documentary crew to just film their houses as is. Lee's mom is in that poem. So okay, that's one. Then we have in the Mexican restaurant, there's Xochitl, who plays with the mariachi band. That is Xochitl's dad, who's leading the mariachi band, and his Xochitl's dad started a mariachi organization that trains younger mariachis, and those younger mariachi who are there with them are part of this organization. So that was like her family performing with her. And then another one that I'll never forget is just Tyrus recording his last poem on his phone, because that poem was unscripted. Like, we didn't have it in the script, and as his story progressed through the film, we realized that we wanted to just understand a little bit more of sort of like the place that this poetry comes from. And we asked him to write about his experience, and he wrote that, and it was beautiful. And we shot it on the phone, no production, no anything. It was just Tyrus in downtown walking around, just filming himself talking, and the way he made himself vulnerable and the way he opened up. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie. Sorry, I took over that answer. Tyrus, Mila, do you two have any?
I don't know if I have like any Easter eggs, but I do. I just have appreciation for how much time and effort and just like how much of people's lives was put into like even little moments of this scene and of the film. Like, I loved even the opening scene with Ollie, like literally just like ukulele, and I'm like, the fact that I know that they were up at 4 a.m. with a ukulele and roller skates blows my mind. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that there are like really interesting things behind the scenes that like created those moments. Like, I think about Ollie knowing that they wanted to like skate and sing that song, but also knowing that Ollie didn't really know how to skate before filming. Like, Ollie learned how to roller skate to make that happen. And then I think about like Dr. Busan, who is like such an incredible, I think, character in the movie. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Busan had like never acted before either, and like
Yeah.
had fully just been like brought into the project. And I think about how special all these people are and all these moments and how we really made them work. And the only other thing I'll say is also with Anubis and Raw, the like scene where they're like going to perform and they're on Hollywood Boulevard or whatever it is, like all the people that are pretty much like screaming outside, like so excited to watch them perform. A lot of those people are like our friends and family, and it's because we had the opportunity to bring as many people as we wanted into the project as extras or whatever. And so I love watching that scene because I'm like, oh, there's Mo, like there's so it's like it's all these people that are part of our community, and they're not just like random extras, like they are maybe seemingly, but we know when we watch it that these are really our friend, like our families, our friends, our community. And I think that that's something that's really special as well.
There's some moments in the film, speaking of Kyrus in particular, that moment when you're walking up and down some streets in LA. There's some moments where some of the poets are, they're taking it there. They're connecting to the work. There are tears, and those are real tears. Can you speak a little bit to what it takes as a poet to connect to yourself to that degree to share the work? What is that like? And can you describe those moments in the film? I'm wondering if you actually sometimes forgot the cameras were even there while you were performing these pieces.
I think when performing poetry, it takes a level of honesty, not necessarily like honesty with the audience, but also honesty with yourself. Like that ultimately is what poetry is. You harbor this ability to just be vulnerable with yourself. And so many times in writing, I find that I just get into like this fury of I need to get these emotions out. And it's that level of just like being able to capture what you are feeling wholeheartedly and translate it into an art form of words, of painting, of movement, of whatever avenue you choose to do it in. And I think when writing poetry, I'm just so grateful that I was able to not only find it, but just like put myself in scenarios, in scenes, in works that I'm able to free myself from the boundings that I go through in life.
Mm-hmm. Mila, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I think Tyrus really did absolutely nail that. I think there is a level of honesty, and I think that that's also what's special about the movie is that like the poems are poems that we wrote ourselves. We're some of us are playing characters, but the majority of us are playing ourselves and we're reading our own work. So these are feelings we already had, and I think something that really did differ as far as like performing poetry on a stage and performing for a camera for a movie is that you're running these scenes over and over again. So you're dwelling in the feelings, I think, a little bit longer than you might if you're just going on a stage and performing and then walking off when you're done and sort of just shaking it off. What in that bus scene, like I am saying that gay poem over and over and over again. And so it gives me more time to really think about what I'm writing because, sometimes I write and I'm like, oh, I like that, but I don't ever sit with it. Like, I don't often sit with it and be like, this is really what I'm saying, but you kind of have to when you're saying it back. And I think that that's something many poets found when we were workshopping scenes. And I think about Markeisha's scene at the end of the movie and that the poem Shallow, it blows me away and it like makes my heart burst every time. And I think about Markeisha workshopping that scene. Markeisha stood in that poem a lot. Like Markeisha rehearsed that poem over and over again. And I know that because we workshopped it. But that final moment of like freedom, I know Markeisha had really accomplished something and lived through that poem because that was an old poem, a poem I think that she had written a few years back, but worked so well in the narrative of the movie that I just think it became something really, really special and almost like, I don't know, just a beautiful process to then get to stand in your poem and really understand it and live with it and then move on from it, almost let it go and free yourself from it. I think is just a really beautiful thing.
Can I add a little bit to that? Because I think that you were asking me, Daniel, about the moments that stuck with me the most. And I there's so many that it's really hard to say like this one, but you brought up Markeisha right now, Mila. and that just took me to a place, because the work that she did in the movie is just, I think, life changing. And that particular poem, recording that poem, it's obviously it's a very vulnerable a place that she has to go to in order to perform that truthfully. And I know that she was really nervous to perform it, just because, you know, it's, she knew that she was going to have it a few times. Obviously we're going to do it as few as possible, but she was going to do it in front of a lot of people. It's just it was I think just like a complicated scenario for someone to let you in so deeply. And we were on set, and she did it a few times, and I could tell just from sitting behind the monitor that something wasn't clicking, that something wasn't, she was struggling for some reason. She wasn't really feeling like herself. So we did it a few times, and it didn't feel like she was connecting in the way that I had experienced Markeisha connecting. So we broke for dinner. It was late at night. We were supposed to move on to do the rest of the things. And when we came back from dinner, I went up to Markeisha and I said, hey, I don't want to pressure you. I know that you've done this enough times. I don't want to like make you go there. But you know, I've seen you perform, and I know that you connect to your work in a way that is really powerful. Is there anything holding you back? Like, do you want to do it one more time? And like, don't worry about the camera. Don't worry. We had made some edits to the text to make it like a little bit more, to make it like match a little more with the LA. It would like a few line tweaks. I was like, you know what? Forget about those. Like, do the poem how you know it. Don't think about like the lines or the breaks. If you want to ad lib, go for it. We removed the actor, Cyrus, who had been very kind and like really helpful, but we said, you know, just do it to the camera. Don't think about the actors. Don't think about anything. Just do one for you. And she went there. She shared her story about that poem before going into the scene, had everyone in tears. Like, I looked around the monitor and everyone was just waterfalls down their eyes. And then she went to perform the piece that you see in the movie from top to bottom, no edits. That's the Markeisha performance, and it's just like one of the most beautiful things that I've ever been a part of.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that story, because that's a moment.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, generally speaking, I think that and all of the other really strong moments in the film make this film one that when you walk away from it, you are a better human being after having.
I'm so happy and moved to hear that, because that's how I felt when I first was introduced to all of them. I remember walking away of that showcase and just saying, like, the way I feel is really important. Like, the feelings that these people have stirred in me are just miraculous, and I want to try to find a way to share this feeling that I have with other people, and that really is the only reason why we wanted to do Summertime.
I have just a couple more questions, and this next question is for you, specifically, Carlos. I think that a lot of folks who are watching this conversation and also have watched the film are maybe familiar with your film Blindspotting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, this two-part question really. Are there things that you learned from making Blindspotting that you brought into this film? And I'm also wondering, what did you learn from this film?
There's definitely, I mean, Blindspotting was my first feature, so it, you know, changed my life in every imaginable way. And working with David and Rafa so closely was also, I think, so formative to me as an artist, and just the way I think. Like, they're just artists who are so connected to themselves and connected to the people around them and their communities that you know, I think it's their influence on me was major. Um, when it comes to summertime, everything about this process just completely transformed the way I think about movies and art and just like creative work. It was terrifying, like to go into a project without a script, to say it's going to be written by 27 people, and these 27 people have written lots of wonderful things, but have never written a movie. It's also going to be performed by people who had been in front of cameras but never like professionally. It was a lot of firsts, and it forced me to sort of like throw out what I imagined was necessary for a director to succeed, whatever that means. But we're taught that a director is most successful when a director has a crystal clear vision and can communicate that properly, and everyone in their team can just help this director, bring that vision to life. And here I was in like my most vulnerable place, just saying like, look, my vision for this movie is not really mine. My vision for this movie is shared by this community of young artists, and like, if someone doesn't like a scene that they're in, we're not going to shoot it, because this is about them. If someone wants to change something, if someone has a different or a better idea, or if someone just wakes up and has this feeling that they want to share, and that we're going to let that be a part of the process. And I'm not coming here saying like, here's my vision, let's help me make it happen. I'm just coming here saying like, I love this group of poets and I want them to shine in whatever way they want to shine. Like, let's figure out what that means. And in theory, like the philosophy I think is beautiful, but when it comes to practice, it was terrifying. Like, there was entire days of shooting that we didn't use. There were entire scenes that just like didn't work. And I remember I had some really difficult moments, like just coming back from set that day and being like, what have I put all of these people through? Like, I can't, like, this is the most irresponsible thing I've ever done. Like, people are paying us to do this, and like, I don't know what we're doing. So it like that was complicated. But then we had these moments like Markeisha. Then we had these moments with Tyrus and Mila and the rest of the poets, and it just reminded me why we were doing this. And I had to remind myself often that there's a reason why we chose to make this movie. There's a reason why we chose to make this movie the way we did it. And we were going to learn more from not knowing than, I can't imagine what this movie would be like if I had come and said, here's the script, here's how we're going to shoot it. Tyrus, like, make sure you give us these beats, and, we'll shoot it until we have it. And like, that's the movie. It would have been this horrible, stale, just like piece of fabricated nothing. And now it is like the thing that I care about the most, and the thing that I'm most proud of and happiest to be a part of. And it was a bit of a process, but it's just having these wonderful people by my side and just reminding me why this is important.
And because of that choice to let go, it is the centerpiece film for the Cleveland International Film Festival this year. I have one last question for you all. This is a somewhat unfair question, but I have to ask it anyway. Mila, you know by experience, there are people that just don't like poetry. You changed schools because you interfaced with a person who did not like poetry. Why should people who don't like poetry watch this film? Why?
I think that there is such a misconception about what poetry is. And so I think when certain people don't like poetry, I don't always blame them, because I think often the way that poetry is taught can really affect how people interact with the art. So if you are taught to think that poetry is just like old dead white men talking about things that are boring, then yeah, like, I don't like that poetry either. But I think that if you like like community, if you like art, if you like people telling their stories, if you like authenticity, if you like honesty, if you like expression, then I think that Summertime is absolutely a movie that people have to watch. This movie is like, it's deeply creative, it's deeply queer, it's deeply like true to Los Angeles, true to a place. There's so many things in this movie that I think people can find that will relate to them. Like people can watch this movie and find themselves in pockets of different scenes. And so I think that it's easy to dismiss and be like, oh, it's a spoken word film, I'm not interested, but it's so much more than that. And there's so much comedy and music and art of all kinds. So that's what I would say as far as telling the poetry haters to give us a chance.
Tyrus, what would you say?
We're just waiting for you to drop some truth, Tyrus.
What I would say to people, I would just keep it straight. I'd be like, you're in denial because because honestly, life is poetry. Like our living, our life, our existence is just a continuation of rhythm and flow and repetitive nature. I think that this film is so vital to so many people's stories and such a beacon of LA, of culture, of just people who are underrepresented. So I think it's important that you watch and you enjoy that and you be a part of this story that is going to captivate so many people and has captivated people and giants like Carlos to want to create a film about poets. So if Carlos can do it, you can do it. 2021.
Hey, Daniel, do you mind that if I just add a little 1 minute tag at the end of this? I just, because with the risk of sounding like a salesman, I've been trying to end every Q&A by just reminding people that this is an independent movie, that we did it ourselves and we're going to be promoting it ourselves. And we really do need help getting it out to the world. So whenever people watch this movie, if they enjoy it, if they connect to it in the same way that we did, please tell people, please. I know that it sounds like a shameless plug, but please do follow us on Instagram. We're a Summertime Movie 2021. Like that's the way that we're getting the movie out. That's the way that you're gonna get to learn about these poets, and we really do need that support. This is a movie that will only live if people really care about it and take the time to share it with the people that they care about. So if you do, please just consider that, because it means the world to us, and that's the way that hopefully more and more people will learn about these stories.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much. I really appreciated this conversation. Thank you so much. Once again, to our watchers, listeners, my name is Daniel Gray Kantar, and you've been listening to a conversation with the director and producer of the film Summertime, Carlos Lopez Estrada, and two poets and actors featured in the film, Mila Kuda and Tyrus Winter. I want to thank all of our guests for spending their time with us today, as well as sharing your film with the SIFF audience.
Thank you so much.
I also want to thank the SIFF audience for joining us for today's Q&A session. We wouldn't be here without your ongoing support to bring film home. Please consider supporting our challenge match presented by Cuyahoga Arts and Culture to support the future of our festival. Our goal is to reach $145,000 this year, and we're so grateful for any amount that you're able to contribute. To donate, purchase tickets, or check out our full schedule of filmmaker conversations, please visit clevelandfilm.org. That's clevelandfilm.org. And with that, everyone, please stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next time.